We grew into the roads, and the roads are where we lived. I found that quote written on a tiny piece of paper at a bike hostel while riding the Katy Trail across Missouri, and it stuck with me. It stuck with me because it was true. Whether it be on a long bike tour or driving across the country in a car, the road has always felt like home. And so, thus began my cross-country journey with my dad to Washington State to ride the Washington Park Sloop. We would ride through North Cascades National Park, then over to Olympic National Park, and then head back to Yakima after passing through Mount Rainier National Park, totaling somewhere around 900 miles. Our humble destination was an unassuming storage unit near Yakima, where we would store a vehicle for the duration of our 900-mile ride. And I must say, I've never imagined myself driving cross-country to a storage unit, but here we are. After driving for 3 days, it seemed like we were never going to get our ride started. But somehow, we were suddenly loading up our bikes and getting ready to ride into the unknown. Well, the unknown for us, at least. In just a few miles, our suburban ride turned into something a bit more remote. A quiet, winding road through Yakima Canyon. We were finally on the road, and it felt good. Well, it felt hot, to be honest. The air temperature climbed to 95 degrees, and you know it's blazing hot when the heat rash appears. We were elated when we came across an oasis with some ice-cold Coke. The Coke gave us the boost we needed to make it to our campground for the night. We set up camp and cooked up some ramen and retreated to our tents to get away from the mosquitoes.
We interrupt your bike tour programming for a special announcement. We had to end our bike tour. The day that we began our ride, we had a family emergency come up, so we just decided it would be best to go back home to Kentucky. Our 900-mile Washington Park Sloop ended up just being an overnighter through the Yakima Canyon. Even though we were gone for less than 24 hours, we still had some really big takeaways for people who might be considering this route. So our first takeaway isn't necessarily about the route, but it's about getting to the route. Now, we're from Kentucky, and so to get to Washington State is a 31-hour drive. I grew up going on these super long drives on vacation. My family, we didn't fly a whole lot, so we're used to long drives. Starting a bike tour after 31 hours in a car is just not the best idea. We were already tired before we began our route, and I know that sounds silly, but if you've ever driven for just days on end, even though you're just sitting there, it is actually really tiring. So I prefer to fly next time, so hopefully next time we head out to Washington, we will just fly instead of drive. The second takeaway is not pertaining to the route either, but it's more so pertaining to you traveling long distance like we did to do a bike tour. We originally had planned on leaving our car at the long-term parking in the Yakima Airport. The Yakima Airport is not a large airport, and I'm honestly not sure what the security is like at the long-term parking lot. So we decided it might be a good idea to rent a storage unit and store our car in the actual storage unit. This worked out for us really well. We used AAA storage in Selah, Washington, which is just a mile or two down the road from Yakima. They allowed us to store our vehicle in the unit. A lot of storage units don't allow that. They're worried about the fluids leaking and stuff onto the concrete. So we did store our car in the unit, but we put a tarp underneath the car just in case any fluids leaked out or anything like that. But it gave us some peace of mind knowing that our car was actually inside, locked up. It was gonna be cheaper to leave our car in the storage unit than it was at the airport. So definitely something to consider if you're ever driving long distance to start a bike tour. Third takeaway is I should have put more thought into where we were starting. I chose Yakima because it's the closest place on the Washington Park's loop to get to from Kentucky. The Yakima Canyon is beautiful, but it's high desert, it's hot, and there wasn't a lot of services, which is fine. We're used to riding without services. But the kicker is that you're basically surrounded by mountain passes. To the southwest, you've got Mount Rainier National Park, and to the northwest, you've got North Cascades National Park. And so regardless of which direction that you're traveling, if you start in Yakima, you are going to encounter mountain passes within the first couple of days of your ride. And unless you're just super conditioned to riding mountain passes, if you live somewhere where you can train on stuff like that, that might be fine. But in Kentucky, we don't have mountain passes like that to train on. We just have small punchy hills. It just wasn't a really good place for us to start. In hindsight, I wish that we would have started on the coast where the hills are more rollers and you can kind of get your tour legs built up before you get to those national parks. We were obviously really disappointed our bike tour didn't pan out. The most important thing though is I had a great time with my dad. You know, we were in the car together for about a week, and then we had our little out and back from Selah to Ellensburg. And you know, even though it didn't work out, we still had a great time, and any time spent with him is awesome. And before I go, something that's really important to know about bike touring is the post-bike tour blues is actually a real thing. When I finished my Trans Am tour, which was my first bike tour, I was kind of down in the dumps for the next few months after the tour. And I found the best thing to do is just to keep yourself busy and start planning the next bike tour. And so that's what my dad and I are doing. We're already planning a redemption tour. Hopefully next summer we'll be able to go back out to the coast and, you know, piece together some type of tour. I don't know if it's going to be the Washington Park's loop or a different tour, but we're already starting to plan that. So that really helps getting over kind of being down about our trip being over. Another thing to combat the post-tour blues is to keep yourself busy. I like to stay busy with different projects. I'm about to wrap up our landscaping project that I've done. I've completely redid our front landscaping. And another project that we are working on is we actually recently bought a camper van, and it was partially converted when we bought it, and we basically gutted it so we can make it our own. It's gonna have some sliding bike trays. So we're definitely gonna be taking that on some trips, maybe with our mountain bikes, maybe with our touring bikes, but you will definitely be seeing the van in some upcoming videos. And so before we end it, I just wanted to give you a short little tour of, right now, our gutted ProMaster. This is our Dodge ProMaster 136 high roof. We've been redoing the windows. We cut a big hole in the side of it and installed this T-vent window. We had a little scare with a leak, but we got it figured out. We also installed 2 rear windows, which really helps with seeing out the back, and frankly, I just like to have a lot of windows, so I'm super excited about our window installs. Let's hop inside and I'll show you what we're gonna do with the layout. In this space, we are gonna have a kitchenette with a sink. In this spot that is outlined on the floor, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but we are gonna have a seat that opens up where we're gonna store our refrigerator. And of course, in the back, we are gonna have a queen size bed. It's gonna be raised up pretty tall because below the bed is gonna be some bike tray sliders where we're gonna store our mountain bikes and our touring bikes whenever we travel. As always, thanks for tuning in, and always remember, get out and stay out. See you next time.
Don't worry, there will be more bike tours in the future.